I'm good, thank you. Thank you. Very good. Check. Good morning. Hey, y'all. What's up?
Oh, I got fishies.
We got fishies. Yes, we do.
They're so cute.
They're really cute.
What do you make this?
This is your pile right here that I'm making. Darcy pile. Smudgy. That's Anthony, that's fine. Scooch past you real quick, Claire. You and the other. There you go. There, where I'll see them. Okay. There we are. We are all set for the day.
Oh, my mom was
Yes.
going through her stuff and she found this legend of a sand dollar in a magazine. She was
What
reading
was it on?
the legend of the sand dollar.
Oh, okay.
And so I brought it today because one of the things we learned about last week
That's
was
so
sand
cool.
dollars.
Yes. Very good. We have a few minutes. We'll have you read it. Hey, Miss Lil. Shake it.
Not much.
Not in much. Not in much, she says. A whole stack of stuff to return to you, my dear.
Yeah.
There you are. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Did everybody have a nice week off?
I did not have a week off.
No, I know you didn't.
My
Well, for those of you who
parents were in
did.
Florida, we didn't get a lot of schoolwork done, so that's what we did.
Mm. That's true. And then, of course, your brother and sister took off and left the state.
Yeah.
on their adventure?
And then they got stuck in Casper for an extra day.
I
because
know.
It snowed hard.
I know, it did.
We missed,
Hey, I got a
Vinny's
thing for you, Drew.
birthday and Ellie's birthday.
Oh my goodness, did you really?
Yeah.
Here. Hi, this morning. Organize your mess. Maybe you should go over to the table and spread out. Hey, Stars, what's up?
A little bit not on time.
All right, there's a bunch of people missing still. I don't know why.
Hey,
Slow Tuesday.
I
She's
don't
ready
have-
for summer. She has decided it's
I
summer.
know, it's summer now.
Good for you. Decide it.
I
Roll
do
with it.
not like summer.
It's gonna be 81 degrees every day. It's
I know, it's really
My
weird.
birthday's in summer too, but I prefer winter because there are no bugs.
When's your
It's
birthday?
cold. Weather.
Now, did you see this? Did you see it?
Oh, that's nice.
I'm 10
I
years
think I
old
noticed
now.
that. It's good.
Nice.
When was your birthday?
February 17th.
Oh, happy birthday.
I'm 14 now.
When was your birthday was?
February 11th.
Yeah, I was gonna say yours was last week. I know.
And then my
Yeah.
little sister is 9. Her birthday was February 20th.
Well, my birthday's gonna be Sunday, and it's never been. It's supposed to be 79. It's never been that hot on my birthday, so I'm kind of weirded out. So always rains. So, but it's never been that hot. I was born in a storm, though. My mom says I always bring the rain every year. Okay.
Born under the fireworks on the 3rd of July.
Well, that's nice.
How many
Supposed to be born on the 4th of July, but I was late.
What's your birthday?
July 7th.
So it's cool.
I was supposed
I
to
don't think I knew that. That's cool.
I was supposed to be born on a weekday, but I was early.
Yeah.
He
Oh,
was
my
Hers is the 7th,
born
yeah.
on a weekday, but I was early.
All my
I was
birthdays
late.
were early.
Mm.
All the birthdays were early.
All right.
Late.
Early.
Well, let's go ahead and get started. I don't know about who are we missing? Anthony and Sky. Is that it? Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and we'll roll because we have lots of stuff to do today. I'll tell you, our lab today is super, super fun, but you guys are gonna have to work kind of quickly. So I actually did I did mine ahead of time. So my frog's already done and I got him really nice and clean and everything moved out of the way so you can see everything in case you're trying to look for stuff. So you are dissecting frogs today. It's a lot of fun.
The other week, and I had to dissect this squid all by
I
myself.
Did not mean to leave you, but I was skiing.
Mhm.
I hilarious because I went with my friends, me, Vander, and Lewis. Were trying to get on a ski lift, and Lewis like went to the side. It was a
Oh.
3-person ski lift. He fell to the side. Vander tried to grab him and fell as well, but I just left them. And the funny thing was, I didn't even know there was a bar,
Oh, yeah.
and I went on by myself for the first time. I didn't even know there was.
Didn't bring the bar
until,
down?
like, the second time.
All right, well, let's go ahead and start. So we're in unit 7, which is our animals unit. And today we're focusing on fish, amphibians, and reptiles. So we're moving along our evolutionary phylogenetic tree, right? And we're getting closer and closer to our most evolved species on Earth, which is what? What's the most evolved species on Earth? What'd you say? Yep, right, right. So we've gone from, what did we do last week? We did mollusks, echinoderms, and what? Arthropods, right? So we're getting there. So now we're moving along to fish and amphibians and reptiles. Now, something else today I want you to get, when you get a chance, you go look, what's that? I have a little tank on the table over there. Now I have brownies over there, but that's because the lab rats class earned brownie points, enough brownie points to get brownies. So those are for them. But in that little tank over there, I have 3 native Georgia reptiles that I actually, all of them were in my yard. 2 of them were rescued and one of them I just happened to find and I put in there. So the trick today is to see if you can find all 3. And I'm going to be letting them go later this week, but I had them for you to look at. All right, so what's your question, Lewis?
Speaking about reptiles,
Mhm.
A few months ago, we went to this park called Sims Lake Park.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we saw a garden snake.
Mm-hmm.
We started, it was like a baby garden snake, this big.
Yeah,
we picked it
That's
up.
how big they get.
Oh yeah, we picked it up on our hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so your homework was to find mollusks and arthropods and take pictures of them. Was everybody, you had trouble uploading, but I think most of you, I saw a lot of, messages. Did everybody,
I got a lot of.
but did you actually get it uploaded? I haven't looked yet to see.
Eventually, me and Louis got it uploaded, and I think
Good.
Claire did as well.
Yep.
I get uploaded? I did.
I haven't looked.
Yesterday.
And
I was
it wasn't
surprised.
due till 8 this morning, so I know some people were still
I
finding
checked
look
my
at.
computer all day.
Well, tell me what kind of mollusks and arthropods you guys found. What did you find?
So we found a crab.
A
We
crab.
actually found lots and lots more. We found a crab, a leopard slug, some black slugs, a snail, and a starfish.
Nice.
And guess what? The crab we posted, it's an Atlantic ghost crab.
Oh, those are
Sounds
beautiful. They're
really
so
cool.
cute. Yeah. Who else found anything? Anybody else find any?
I didn't find anything. I didn't know we were supposed to find.
Yeah.
I
Find
didn't find anything either.
Okay. So yeah, you will see some mollusks over there in that tank when you go looking. There's some snails in there. And they're in there because some of the reptiles we have to look at today actually eat them. So they're actually food. Uh-huh.
Great, snake.
There might be, you'll have to wait and see. All right, so we're gonna move on now to our fish, amphibians, and reptiles. These are what we call our lower chordates. They're all chordates now. And a lot are slippery, slimy, or scaly.
Oh, wow.
So we're gonna talk about phylum Chordata. And once we're in phylum Chordata, we have our chondrichthyes, right? They're our cartilaginous fish. And then the next subphylum is vertebrata. And that's where pretty much everything else is going to fit in, everything we haven't talked about yet. So these are ones that have any vertebrae. They're classified under subphylum vertebrata. And it's an animal with a backbone. So you've got several broad classes in here. You've got fish, and you've got amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals. So this word vertebrate refers to the bony vertebral column, which we all have, right? And all classes of vertebrate have developed brains, internal skeletons to which muscles can attach, 2 eyes, closed circulatory systems, muscular mouths, and at some point during their development, all possess a notochord. So what's a notochord? A notochord, you can see it right here, okay? So we're going to be talking, and I'm going to be telling you some things about what all chordates and what all vertebrates specifically possess at some point during their development. And you need to be thinking about, well, do I have that structure? Because I'm going to tell you that you do. So these are the things that they all possess at some point: a notochord, a dorsal hollow nerve cord, an endostyle or a thyroid, pharyngeal slits, and a postanal tail. Think about it. Chordates get their name from the characteristic notochord, this right here, which plays a significant role in chordate structure and movement. So you have a notochord inside of your dorsal hollow nerve cord, and you have your nerve cord here. So your notochord is like structure for your nerve cord, okay? So you're a chordate. Do you have all these things? So let's think about it here. So what's your notochord? The defining structure of chordates, it has essential roles in vertebrate development. So it's going to serve as a source of midline signals and patterns surrounding tissues as a major skeletal element of a developing embryo. So what is your notochord? What is it? So for you, it's going to be right in here. It's going to be your spinal cord. So flexible route of tissue, mid-dorsal, position later occupied by the vertebral column. So your vertebral column eventually takes up that space. And in an adult, the remnants of it are inside your intervertebral discs. So do you remember when I showed you those pictures of like what an extruded disc looked like when they were thinking that was my issue? So what's left of the notochord is going to turn into that material inside of your discs. So basically it forms, it's the beginning of forming your vertebra and your spinal column. So as you develop as an embryo, it goes from just that one little line, one little structure to a much more complicated structure. Here, Sky, hang on, I have something for you. There you go. Thank you, ma'am. So let's see, what was the next thing we said that all vertebrates have? So wait, I'm a chordate. Do I have these things? They can make room for you. Okay. Or you can pull a chair up to that table if you want. Okay. So what's the next thing? Okay. So your dorsal hollow nerve cord. This is going to become your nervous system. So you got a hollow bundle of nerve fibers that transverse dorsally. What's dorsally mean? Remember what dorsal is? We talked about body planes. What's dorsal? Dorsal is your back side. What was the opposite of dorsal? What's your front side called? Remember? Ventral. Dorsal, ventral, right? Along a longitudinal axis, that means this way, right? Longitudinal. Of chordates at some stage of their life, and it runs above the notochord and the gut is an embryonic feature that is unique to chordates. In vertebrates, this embryonic feature is known as the dorsal hollow nerve cord transforms into your brain and your spinal cord. So your notochord becomes the structures that encapsulate your spinal cord, and your dorsal hollow nerve cord turns into your actual spinal cord and your brain. So your central nervous system, which is your brain and spinal cord, is the eventual product of your dorsal hollow nerve cord. So this is your central nervous system. It's just your brain and your spine and these nerve roots, right, that we've talked about before. So what do you call the rest of your nerves? What are they part of? Do you know?
Nervous system?
Yeah, peripheral nervous system. And we'll be talking about that when we get into humans next. So wait, do I have these things? This endostyle or thyroid gland. So your endostyle is an anatomical feature found in invertebrate chordates. Invertebrate chordates, what are those?
Basically human beings.
Nope, invertebrate chordates.
Oh, right.
What are they? What?
Like sharks.
Yeah, sharks, skates, and rays. All right. So it's a structure found in your invertebrate chordates and larval lampreys. And that's an organ which assists chordates in filter feeding. So for sharks, skates, and rays, it helps them with filter feeding. But through time, it has transformed into into your thyroid gland. So in mammals, it's a thyroid gland. And your thyroid is actually part of your endocrine system, and it helps you regulate your metabolism mostly. So, okay, thyroid. All right, so what's the next thing we said? We said pharyngeal slits. Okay, this is a fun one. These are openings in the pharynx. Where's your pharynx? Do you know where that is?
Right behind your ear.
Your pharynx is everything from like the back of your nose. It's where your nose and throat come together and this part of your head, down to where they split into your lungs, like your lung tissue versus your digestive system tissue. So it's basically this chunk in the middle is your pharynx, where it's all combined, where you're breathing and eating, it all goes on at the same time. So these are openings in it, and they aid aquatic organisms, so fish, right, to filter food from the water. And in bony fishes, they develop into what we call their gill arches, okay? But what are they in terrestrial organisms? So terrestrial versus aquatic, that means living on land versus living in the water, right? So in terrestrial organisms, they're going to evolve into your jaw and your inner ear. What's in your inner ear? It's your little tiny bones and all those little things. So it starts out as gill slits. So where are your gill slits? Where were your gill slits? So you had
Right
them?
behind your ear.
Well, yeah, sort of. So when you were a 4-week-old embryo, they were really obvious. They were right here.
Oh, wow. We look like dinosaurs.
Absolutely. And you had these here, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And as you develop before you're born, by the time you get to 24 week, you can clearly see where they are. This number 1 has turned into the 2 of the bones of your inner ear. This is the hammer and the anvil. And then this one turns into the stirrup bone. So hammer, anvil, stirrup. You've heard that before. And then, yeah, these just keep growing, and these become part of like the support for your thyroid. So you had gills, absolutely, at some point in your life. So how about this one? Hiya.
I was able to bring my sea urchin.
To bring your what?
I was able to bring my sea urchin.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, if you have
I
it,
wasn't
great. If you
able to.
you weren't able to, that's okay. We'll worry about it later. No worries. It's all right. Come on in and have a seat. All right. So post-anal tail. All right. Where's your tail? I'm telling you all vertebrates have one. Where's your tail?
Right there.
Okay, your tailbone. But how about an actual tail? Like you got a couple of bones, but you haven't really had a tail, have you? Anybody have a tail? So let's
When
see.
you were a baby,
There you go.
you had a tail.
Ah, you did have a tail.
Oh,
There it
wow,
is.
that was a literal dinosaur. Why are there lots of-
That's a human
It looks like a
embryo.
walrus.
So
Oh, yeah, it does.
your post-anal tail would be a muscular region of the body that extends posterior. What's posterior mean?
But
Posterior, yeah, beyond, right? That back end, right? Posterior to the anus, and the tail may aid in locomotion and balance. Think about an animal where tail aids in locomotion or balance.
kangaroo.
There's one. Dog. What else did you have?
Dingo. Also, why are there lumps on it?
Oh, that's just part of where this is the spinal column forming, actually. How about how do monkeys use their tails?
Hold on. Bring on the fifth hand.
Yeah.
How to use your feet.
How about squirrels? Have you seen how they use their tails?
Balance.
Yeah.
Communicating a little.
Yeah, they fluff them up when they're communicating. So absolutely, you had a tail, like a full tail. This is a bud that will become a leg,
So,
and this is a bud that will become an arm. So you can really see how that tail extends. So what were you gonna say, Anthony?
So that's like saying that our mouths are tails and things, since that's how we communicate.
No, this would be a tail that would be at the bottom of your spinal column. But obviously some animals are going to communicate with different body parts, especially if they're nonverbal animals. Like a lot of animals will communicate with their tails. They'll swish them around, or cats will put them, dogs will wag them when they're happy, right? Tails of the squirrels will do this little thing when they're mad.
Cats do it when they're mad. Also,
Flick, flick. Yep.
how many more points do we need to have problems?
I think you guys are at like 18 or something. So yeah, is it 16? I was gonna say you've got about less than 10.
I don't like brownies, so I don't care.
I love brown. I like
So this is a human embryo. This right here is going to become an eye. This is working to become a jaw. And then all this kind of weird looking stuff here is eventually going to turn into all your viscera, all your abdominal organs over time. Then you got a arm bud, a leg bud, and an actual tail. And over time, this tail is going to, it won't grow as fast as everything else. So it's not that it shrinks, it just doesn't grow as much. Like a tadpole, yeah. So here we have our ectotherms and our endotherms. Now, do we remember the difference between an ectotherm and an endotherm? What's that? Anybody remember? Do you remember?
Endotherms have cold-blooded, are warm-blooded.
Yep.
And
Ectotherms are what we call
Ectotherms are
cold-blooded, right? So your endotherms, very good, Lewis. This is examples, this little mouse here. They generate their own metabolic heat. So endo means inside. So they generate the heat from inside. That's how you can remember that an endotherm is a warm-blooded, because you generate your own heat, right? Like if you start running, are you going to get hotter? Yeah, so you're definitely generating heat. You ever slept in a room when you gone to go to bed, it's relatively cool, and when you wake up, it's warm in there because your body heat's like making the room, especially if there's more than one person in the room.
I
Yeah.
share it with 3 people, and
Yep.
it's always cold because our room has like 5 air conditioning.
Oh,
vents, 'cause
wow.
Katie hates hot.
Well, good for Katie. I like Katie. I don't like hot either.
Anyway, oh right.
I
So-
don't like cold when I'm trying to fall asleep.
So your average temperature for a human, for example, is around 37 or 98 and 98.7 degrees, right? In that range. And then this is your endotherm. So your ectotherms, ecto means outside. So they get their heat from outside. So this is going to be your reptiles, basically. So do you remember back, we said there were birds, amphibians, reptiles, mammals. Which of these are endotherms and which are ectotherms? Let's think for a minute.
reptiles are
You have a word bank?
Endotherm.
What'd you say?
Can you write out a word bank? Because I already forgot.
Can I write out what for you?
A word bank. 'cause
The
I
word
forgot.
bank. Oh.
birds.
Yeah.
Are
What are birds?
endotherms.
Birds are endotherms. If you touch a bird, it's warm, right?
So endotherms are things that generate heat, and ectotherms are things
Uh-huh.
that have to rely on like the sun. And
Ah, yes. Yep.
I
So,
talked to my brother on my
yep. So endotherms make their heat inside. Ectotherms get their heat from outside. So let's look here. What do we have? We have a fish, a sea lion, an iguana, a parakeet, and a salamander. So where's the fish gonna go? What do we think? Let's take a vote. Ectotherm or endotherm? Who says it's going to be ectotherm?
Fish?
The fish. Is it getting its heat from outside or from inside its body?
Oh,
What do you think? If you touch a fish, is it warm?
No, it's
cold.
not.
Darcy, quick. Let's see. Your fish is an ectotherm. Your fish is going to get its body heat from outside. So if the water's cool, Darcy, don't. So if the water is cool, the fish will be cool. If the water is warm, the fish will be warm. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the fish feels cold or warm. It doesn't affect it that way, okay? Because you feel cold because you're an endotherm. So you have your own body heat. And if it's really cold outside, your body's working really hard to keep warm, and you feel the cold on you because you're warm. But if you were the same temperature as your environment, you wouldn't feel the cold on you. You feel the heat on you because you're cooler. So if it's 100 degrees outside, you feel that heat, right? Because it's warmer than you. But if it's exactly body temperature outside, you don't feel it. You wouldn't feel it at all. All right, so how about the seal? Where's a sea lion? Sorry, where's the sea lion gonna go?
Endotherm.
Endotherm. Let's see. Yep, that's where he goes. Isn't he cute? I think they're so cute. Their little faces look like dogs to me. They look like dachshund faces. I'm sorry, they're cute.
There's a dog with purple
Seals
shirt
are
that was just laying down.
Oh yeah, here?
It was like the seahorse was down.
Oh yeah. There's one on Sterling. Yeah, there's one on Sterling. It's an Australian Shepherd. You probably saw. Yeah, and she's got an invisible fence, and she's always in the front yard. So how about the iguana? Obviously, our reptiles are going to be ectotherms. That's why you see them sometimes as people have the heat lights for them, and they'll like lay on a rock and spread out. You ever see the turtles on a log in like a pond or river? They're getting up on the log to get warm, right? Okay, how about the bird? We said birds are going to go where?
Endotherm.
There he goes.
Then ectotherm.
And this little ectotherm here, that's a salamander. There he is. They're cute. Yes, Darcy?
Have you ever seen an albino alligator?
Yeah, there actually is an albino caiman at the zoo.
There are two albino alligators at the aquarium.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's what she was talking about.
All right, so let's see what's next here. So endotherms can alter metabolic heat production to maintain body temperature. So if it's cold outside, your body is going to want to produce more heat. Anybody know what kind of dog that is?
Border collie.
Very good. Do you know what they're bred to do?
They're bred to herd.
To herd, yep. And I'll tell you, we took a family trip the fall before COVID hit, seems like decades ago. And one of the things that Jason surprised us with was a trip to a farm where it was a guy who did herding with border collies, and he did like a exposition or something basically, but you got to watch him work the dogs. And what was amazing is border collies are some of the smartest of dog breeds. He had a whistle that he would blow, and yeah, kind of like that, but it had, depending on how he blew it, it had different pitches. Like you blow it harder, it makes a higher pitch, that kind of thing. Each dog had its name, right? And its name had a particular pattern of blowing. Higher, lower, too high, one low. And then each command had a pattern of blowing. So like a whistle. So he would be like high, high, low, high. And the dog who was high, high, low would know that low, high means go to the right. And it was amazing. He would just sit there and blow the whistle, and the dogs would recognize their name and the command and do it. And the other dogs who weren't called by name didn't do it. It was the most incredible thing I've seen. It was wild. So we have something called vasoconstriction and vasodilation. So here's your word vaso. That has to do with your veins and your arteries, predominantly your veins, because they're towards the, if your arteries are more inside and your veins are more external, because it makes sense. I mean, if you get cut, it's better to bleed out venous blood that has already been deoxygenated than it is to bleed out arterial blood. That's why if somebody cuts an artery, it's a really big deal. So if you shrink them versus dilating them. So if you have vasodilation, you're dilating your blood vessels. And this can, what do you think is the difference between vasodilation and vasoconstriction? Like, when do you think this happens? When do you think your blood vessels shrink up? You ever seen people who's like get frostbite and their fingertips turn white, or your feet get kind of white or purple when it's really cold in the house or whatever? Exactly.
Have your fingers ever like felt really, really fat when it's really hot?
Yep. So countercurrent heat exchanger is an arrangement of blood vessels in which heat flows from warmer to cooler, usually reducing heat loss. And then some animals use insulation and evaporative mechanisms such as sweating and panting in body temperature regulation. So we don't pant, but we sweat. And when the sweat evaporates off of us, that process makes the surface of your skin feel cooler. What's an animal that uses insulation? What's an example of insulation?
Skin.
That's one way. Okay, but what else?
Blubber.
Blubber is a great example, right? Think about whales. Do you remember whales used to be hunted for their blubber because they would melt it down and make it into oil? So let's talk fish for a bit. All right, so here are defining characteristics of fish. Fish are aquatic ectothermic vertebrates Their body is divisible into a head, trunk, and tail. So these are their three divisions. Now I'm circling these things for you on this graphic as we go, so you probably want to watch them. So this is a vertebrate. It's got a head, trunk, and tail. It has a spindle-shaped body. This is a spindle or fusiform. Okay, that's what we call it, is fusiform, and it's spindle-shaped. All right, and the body is covered by scales, respiration by the gills, and on the head is a pair of nostrils that are present. Internal nostrils are absent, so it's got nostrils on the outside, right? And the head has a pair of eyes, two eyes. So fish possess a swim bladder. See this thing right here? And it's a specialized organ filled with air that helps ensure that the fish is stable and buoyant. So they keep it like an air balloon inside their body. Now, sometimes goldfish, they have like actually two swim bladders, and sometimes they'll have it where like one of them goes bad, or I don't know, leaks or whatever, and they'll get sideways. You ever seen them do that? That's a really weird thing.
You're telling me instead of having liquid in their bladder, they have air?
Air bladder. Yep, it's
So
an air
they
bladder.
pee out air?
No, there's not urinary bladder. These are specifically swim bladders. They're not the same thing. So urinary bladder would be where urine would go, but a swim bladder is full of air. It's literally like a little balloon inside the fish. Now I did open up my perch fish for you all to see, and the swim bladder is like the membrane is pretty much attached to the internal membrane of the fish's viscera system. So it basically, you can see a big cavity, a hole in the fish, and that's where the air would be. And lastly, they have fins for movement in water. So these are our main categories of fish. This time they're actually classes. These are actual taxonomical classes. So we have agnathans, which are lampreys and hagfish. They have no jaws. We call these are jawless fish. They have no paired fins. Their fins are not in pairs, right? And they are early species, had heavy bony scales and plates in their skin, but are not present in the living species. Living species of these look almost like an eel with teeth, right? Their skeleton's mostly cartilaginous. The embryonic notochord persists into adulthood, so they don't get the same type of change of notochord into vertebral discs. It actually stays for their adulthood. 7 or more paired gill pouches are present, and that's what they look like. Digestive system lacks a stomach. So these are lamprey and hagfish. That's what they look like. Isn't that wild?
The hagfish
Oh my gosh, that's scary.
is really
I did.
cool.
Awesome.
I did an essay on
So
them.
chondrichthyes are sharks, skates, and rays. So they have a cartilaginous endoskeleton. Remember, endo means inside, right? So they have a skeleton inside. Do you have an endoskeleton?
Yes.
Yes. What has an exoskeleton? We talked about them last week. What?
Like an ant.
Yeah, arthropods have an exoskeleton. Perfect. All right, so
Cicada.
they have a ventrally located mouth. So their mouth is on the bottom side, not the top side of their body. The notochord is present throughout life. Again, it doesn't turn into vertebral disc cushions, right? Gills are not covered in what they call the operculum, which you don't need to worry about too much. And they have an absence of an air bladder. So there's no air bladder in sharks, skates, or rays.
Oh, wow.
So these are chondrichthyes. Your last and most prevalent of your classes of fish are osteichthyes, which is bony fish. So you can see ichthyes here and ichthyes here. That is fish. Here you see oste, that's bone. Chondri would be cartilaginous. Okay, that's the difference. So here you go. They have a skeleton of bone. Hooray. Obviously, it's an endoskeleton. Scales on their body, paired fins, 1 pair of gill openings. These are pairs, right? Jaws, and paired nostrils. And here they are. This is a beta fish, like
Oh my
Are
gosh,
you
so
here?
pretty.
and a pufferfish. Very cool. So our next group would be amphibians. We got to keep growing. So there's a little rainforest frog, isn't he cute? Okay. So we got this little frog here. Yeah, I have my bird feeders are right on the window now. So that's my male bluebird. Ain't he pretty? Beautiful. So our amphibians. So defining characteristics of amphibians, you want to pay attention to this because this is what you're doing in lab today, and you're going to actually be looking for a lot of these structures. So they are vertebrates, of course. Their skin is smooth and slimy, typically slimy. Now you can pick up a toad and they're not usually all that slimy because they're terrestrial, but frogs are in the water, they're pretty slimy. So yeah, they do. So they breathe through their skin as well as their lungs in some cases.
How do you breathe
So they actually absorb oxygen through their skin and it gets transferred to their blood system. So that's just another way they take oxygen into their circulatory system.
When they hibernate, they dig themselves underwater.
Yeah, sometimes, or under
Sand.
mud. Yeah.
Mud,
Mm-hmm.
and all they do is just breathe through their skin.
Yep. Isn't that wild? So they also are ectotherms, which means they need to get their temperature from external sources. They have a complex life cycle very often. We've seen, y'all know this. Everybody knows this. You learned this in kindergarten, right? What? What'd you get?
We kept so we have a tadpole pond down
Oh,
near
cool.
our house,
Uh-huh.
and we caught 7 tadpoles,
Mm-hmm.
and we saw them turn into like mini frogs.
It's fun, isn't it? Yep. Yep.
They turned into big ones.
Yep. And you know, if you're looking for frog eggs and you want to watch them go through that metamorphosis process, some of the eggs they're all gonna have these little black circles inside of jelly circles, right? It's like a big jelly ball with a little black ball inside. You remember how I told you to know whether they're fertilized? When they're fertilized, the little black circle inside of the big ball rotates to point up. They look like eyeballs and they all look straight up at the sky. If they're not all pointed in the same direction looking up, they have not been fertilized yet. So you can grab them, but they're not going to turn into anything because they're just haploid, right? They're not diploid. They're not going to turn into anything. So many species of amphibians vocalize. So one example is a chorus frog. Vocalize. Do frogs make noise? Yes. How about our tree frogs that live here in Georgia?
They
They make lots of, actually they started the other day when it was warm outside. I was like, guys, get back under the mud. It's going to be cold. So some species fertilize externally, some internally. Now look at these eggs. Do you see how they're all pointing the same way? They all look like they're looking at the same thing. Those are fertilized. Yep. Well, those are fertilized. So, whoops, I went. Get back. So that's it. All right. So our next one, amphibian circulatory system. So let's look at this real close. They have a 3-chambered heart. How many chambers are in your heart? Do you know? 4. You have 4. They have 3. They have 1, 2, 3. So this shows going from the lung to the heart. That is oxygenated blood. It's going to go into this and get pumped back out to the body. There's also this non-oxygenated blood that's going to go to the lungs to get oxygenated, right? So it's going to go here and then it comes back to the body. It comes back to here and gets pumped out to the body. So basically it has like a collecting pool for all the blood going, coming from the body and going to the body. And then it just gets circled through here. So it's not as efficient as our 4-chamber because our 4-chamber has collect non-oxygenated, send it to lungs, collect oxygenated, send it out. So ours is very efficient. This is a little less efficient. And then, you know, they have this life cycle, this whole metamorphosis thing, because this, like I said, you learned that in kindergarten. So now you have orders of amphibians. You have Caudata, you have Anura, and then you have Apoda. So let's look. Your Caudata are going to be your salamanders and newts. These are tetrapods, which means they have 4 limbs and they facilitate moving by their little limbs, right? And obviously they're going to be ectothermic, but they also have thin skin, soft and glandular. They have gills and lungs, usually gills in the larval stage that are replaced by lungs. And then they have that 3-chambered heart that frogs have, or other amphibians, all amphibians. So this is a firebelly newt. He's so cute. These can be pets. You can get these at the pet store. So Anura frogs and toads. So these guys, look at this guy. I love him. So these are tetrapods, right? They have their 4 limbs. And they are usually unequal in size because their hind limbs are elongated and modified for what? What do their hind limbs do?
Jump.
Yeah, jump and swim, exactly. So they have a head and a trunk that's fused together. Think about it. They don't have like a head and a trunk. They don't have a neck. Do frogs have a neck? No, their head and their trunk are like fused together. And their vocalizations are usually for the males, and they do it for courtship reasons, like they're trying to attract a girlfriend, right? And they mostly have external fertilization. So usually the female puts the eggs into the water and the male comes by and fertilizes them. And that's so it's sexual reproduction, but there's no actual contact between male and female. Sometimes there is. So yes.
Sometimes toads can grow to be 4
Mhm.
feet big.
Sometimes what? Say it again.
Sometimes toads can grow to be around 4 feet big.
Oh, yeah, there's some big toads. I don't know about 4 feet. I haven't seen one of those. Wow.
They can kill birds.
Right.
Big birds, hawks.
So if you want to tell about toads, and you catch toads easily, right? They're outside all the time. I actually had one the other night that was in our driveway. So if you look at toads and frogs, sometimes you can tell with toads, the male toads tend to have different thumb pads and their thumbs are a little different. And that's because they do actually hop onto the females and mount them. And it's part of their courtship process, but they will actually do that. They'll climb on their backs. And that's those little thumb pads are actually to help them hold on to the females, like they grab them and won't let them go. The other thing you can do is, you ever notice, and you will see today with your frog, they have these external eardrums, these tympanic membranes that are like little circles right here. If you take a toad and you catch him in the yard and you put your fingers on both sides of those tympanic membranes, so basically you've done this to him. If it's a girl, it's not going to do anything. If it's a boy, it'll as soon as you do that. So that's a way to check. So hang on, we're going to keep rolling for a minute. So Sicilians, you ever heard of these before? I've never actually seen one in real life, just pictures. Ooh, what is this? So it means without legs or worm-like. So they're subterranean diggers. It looks like a worm, doesn't it? It's not a worm and it's not a snake. It's an amphibian with no legs. So they're usually in the tropics or subtropics, which is part of the reason I've never seen one in real life. Their eyes can be covered by skin or even bone. So sometimes they're not even obvious. They have a tentacle overhead, which can serve as a chemosensory organ. What would chemosensory mean? What do you think?
Chemosensory means they can sense things without seeing.
You have a chemosensory organ. Well, what's sensory? You can take in information, right? So what's chemo? Chemo. You heard that word? It means chemical. So what is your chemosensory organ?
Our
Scent, smell. When you smell, you're taking in data from chemicals in the air or whatever you're smelling. Yes, Darcy.
Will these frogs already be dead, or will we have to kill them?
No, we have dead frogs. They're already preserved, and they've actually been in. Yeah, they've actually been injected with latex. So
That's
they're
gotta
good.
be better.
So their young are 30 to 60% female when they're born. It's interesting. And they're just crazy looking things. And I've never seen, like I said, never seen one in real life. Look at that guy.
I want to see one.
They're really cool. I haven't even seen one at a zoo. So let's look at our reptiles. Look at the cute. Everybody, oh, look at the baby, so cute. So reptiles, defining characteristics of reptiles. All right. So they're vertebrates. Yeah, of course. Their bodies are covered in scales. They actually are. These are scales of a kind. They're a little different than fish scales maybe, but they're scales. They are ectotherms, of course. And they are produce shelled eggs or bear live young. So some snakes, for example, deliver live snakes. It's like their eggs are inside their body and they kind of hatch inside and then they deliver live young, or they lay eggs. But reptiles, when they lay eggs, they are leathery eggs. They're not hard like a chicken egg. They're soft and leathery. It's one of the ways that like an animal like an amphibian would have eventually evolved into an animal like a reptile. And so how do you get your eggs from in the water where they're safe and there's exchange to keep them moist to the land? Well, this leathery shell lets some moisture in and they usually bury them, right, to keep them from drying out. And then a more advanced animal like a bird would have the ability to let a hard shelled egg out and it isn't going to dry out, at least not quickly.
That turtle's
So they're a little bit, look, oh. So all reptiles fertilize internally. So all reptiles sexually reproduce and you have to have male and female getting together because it's internal fertilization. So all species have at least one lung. So here are our main orders of reptiles: Squamata, Testudines, Rhynchodophilia, and Crocodilia. All right, so Squamata, lizards and snakes. All right, so these have uniquely jointed and highly mobile skulls. Think about a snake skull. Think about the jaw. They can open and let all kinds of things in, right? So sometimes they have some skin glands, but they usually have pretty dry skin and they shed. I'm checking on our time. We got to keep moving. They shed their skin and whatnot. And they don't go through a larval stage. It's always internal fertilization. Look at this guy's gorgeous. They also have external ears and they have live young or lay eggs. Testudines, these are tortoises and turtles. The main difference is and also terrapins. The main difference is terrapins and tortoises are terrestrial, turtles are aquatic. You can tell a turtle because it's got little fins on its feet, like its back feet are more fin-like, and they still, if you look at like a box turtle, yes, it can swim, but it's primarily a tortoise. It's really a tortoise, not a turtle, because it's mostly, yep. So they have limb girdles, they're inside their ribs. They have internal fertilization. They still don't have teeth. They have no teeth. So then we have these guys, tuataras. We'll talk about them in a minute. I'm not going to talk too much about them. Tuatara, see this guy? This is not a lizard. It is a completely different order, and it only exists in one place in the world, really. And they are, primarily, and they're different. They have this thing called a third eye. They actually have a sensory organ where they can sense light, like on the top of their head. A lot of organisms have this, but theirs is really obvious. Crocodilia. So these are you guys know about these. These are our crocodiles and alligators and caimans and gavials. So let's have a quick look because we only got about 5 minutes. So here's our not a lizard. This is our tuatara. And then how long was this one? Let me see. I think we have time. Yeah, we have time for this guy. And then I've got some others. I'll probably just put them in the email.
You don't know who that is. He's an amazing biologist who focuses on herpetology, the study of reptiles and amphibians. I watch him because as a reptile keeper, I like to learn new things. And something I learned today is that there's another group of reptiles out there I knew nothing about. Everybody knows snakes, lizards, turtles, and even crocodilians. I told you there's another group, the Taurus. Not long ago, I made a video about the shelter A snake was not a snake. In that video, I pointed out the key visible features that made it clear that the shelter was actually
It's a lizard.
just by the
Legless.
face, it was not a snake. However, when you look at a tuatara, it's hard to argue that it is anything other than a lizard. So, not. Reptiles stem from the class Reptilia. 2 branches split off. JrLRCL, which are now all extinct, and Europe. Under JrLRCL, you get the Sauria classification, which contains the most recent ancestors to modern reptiles. I'm about to mispronounce all of these names. Within Sauria, you get the Archosauriformes, aka crocodiles, birds, and various extinct dinosaurs. Yes, I said birds. Birds are in fact reptiles.
Sort of.
Then you get to testides, turtles, primata, lizard and snake. Then lastly, oh boy, I know how to butcher this. Rhynchocephalia. Anyways, this group only has one remaining living member, the tuatara, which is not considered a lizard. So why the heck is it not a lizard? Well, when it was first classified in 1831 by John Edward Gray, he classified it as an agamic lizard, like a bearded dragon. In 1867, Albert Gunther said, "Wait a darn second, that's not an agamic. It got weird features. Let's give the thing its own classification." So they did, because science. Now, because science is not really a good enough answer, and I feel you guys would probably leave me angry comments below if I just left the video at that. So here's why these animals are not considered lizards. Short answer, they're evolutionarily different. Long answer, body structure. Tuataras have crystallia, which are rib-like bones that crocodilians also have. This was kind of the giveaway that tuataras were not modern lizards, or actually more closely related to crocodiles, which are way older on the evolutionary chain, despite having a very lizard-like form. There's many other traits that scientists found over time
Oh, I think my internet is slow today. I think that's what the problem is.
to prove that they're not
There you go.
lizards. So now that we know that tuatara is sadly on its own little island, let's talk about where the tuat live. Oh, that's actually on little islands. Well, more specifically, the various little islands around the North Island of New Zealand, with populations on the Brothers Islands below the Northern Island of New Zealand, between the North and the South Islands of New Zealand as well. New Zealand. Now, typically, when I cover an interesting reptile on this channel, there's always something sad about it. Like the fact that tuataras were almost completely extinct due to Polynesian rats. It's always the rats. However, New Zealand stayed courage and decided instead to wipe out the rats. There are about 60,000 to 100,000 tuataras in the wild. They're a protected species, and there are various attempts to breed them to get their numbers even higher. They've been bred in captivity, although not common or easy, and have also been found again in 2008 on the North Island mainland, believed to be the first in 200 years. Obviously, New Zealand really loves these little lizards, not lizards, and they wish to protect them. They're the last of their kind, and hopefully they live on for centuries more to come. Thank you guys for watching, and until next time, take care.
So your remaining videos for this lesson, we're not gonna have time for because, yeah, go away. Real quick, I want to show you this slide.
Dinosaur.
Yep, you got some videos, but you're gonna have to watch them kind of on your own. But these are your main differences between your crocodilia. So you've got an alligator, head shape. Okay, see the head shape? Gavials and caimans, look at their head shape, and your Nile crocodile, head shape. So we only have alligators here. So you have a dinosaur video that you can watch at home, and then this one that talks about birds evolving into dinosaurs and reptiles and whatnot.
No, you mean birds evolving from.
From them. Sorry, same point. Okay, so I'll make sure that all this is in the lesson, but we have to get to lab because lab is going to be very involved today. But this will all be for you to watch and go back over, check your answers, all that good stuff. Okie doke.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna shut this down
Let's go.
Oh my gosh.
and we're gonna get